So I want to give a bit of a response here to that very interesting video that conference report has just uploaded today called Hard Boundaries of the Self. I think this issue of what are the boundaries of what we call a self, and I do think Fred's sort of general orientation here towards suggesting that we use largely ontological metaphors that have a prototypical object in mind. I think it's normally things that are size of a breadbasket. We think of rocks in a shoebox. I think rocks to me are one of the sort of great examples of a thing. It has a surface. It's bounded. It is subject to very little change, and we do like to believe in a kind of permanence. I'm not sure the extent to which I guess fully agree that we we fully see ourselves that way. I'm not sure if Fred was saying that, but I think there is some evolutionary, I guess, reason for wanting to think that the self is somehow similar to a bounded object, or somehow similar to what we would say is a self-contained discrete entity that's somehow over against what it is not. I think the issue of boundaries, though, is very funny. First, it's very visual, right? If you close your eyes and just listen, sound doesn't deal with surfaces at all. There are no surfaces to sounds. There's no veneers. You can't grab a sound. You can't hold a sound still and vary your perspective on it to see the whole of it. Like, for example, if you have a Rubik's Cube is a great example of an object. It's because an object is something that you can either hold still or that holds still enough for us to change our perspective on it and to see its self-similarity across multiple profiles. I think once you move into the realm of sound, and by that I mean certainly spoken language, but all of the things that become possible with spoken language, now we start to move into the realm that necessarily does require ontological metaphors. And ontological metaphors, this is a concept that is laid out so nicely in Metaphors We Live by Lakoff and Johnson. If people haven't seen that, please, it's a great book. It's very, very readable, very smart, interesting examples. I think the things that I would want to get at is ontological metaphors and boundaries of self as those are related to issues like beliefs and ideas. See, I think we think about beliefs somewhat that way. Right? I mean, is a belief a thing? Can I have a number of beliefs? The same with time. I think, because the self is a temporal accomplishment, we're stuck with this, well, what do we mean by time? And time, in the very same way, Fred, I think that we end up thinking like time is some sort of physical container, right? I mean, don't we also, I think, bring some of these sensibilities of boundary and the prototypical object? It's sort of like even as we're trying to think about something as mysterious and as odd as time, we end up thinking of it as a substance that we move through, or we watch grains fall through an hourglass, or again we need the hand to move, and we can see the movement of that hand. Um, as far as and all those are related to what we mean by a self, right? I think a self that is, well, I guess what we mean by a self, right? I would say at least four different things, at the very least. And I think all four of these are interrelated. But by a self is always in some way embodied. Now, the body's boundaries are very funny. Other people can maybe see, and literally see, the physical boundaries that render me as a whole, but I don't see the whole of my body. When I look out there, the world rolls continuously out from my headlessness. I can see only, as I look down, I can only see so far, and then all of a sudden my sight of vision disappears, right? I can't see my eyes themselves. So we're at least bodies, and bodies are very complex, right? They're made up of bacteria, semi-permeable boundaries. We have metabolism. We're giving all kinds of exchanges the body itself is aging and decaying. Certain cells are being shed, you know, countless, right, across us. We have tons of hair follicle organisms, other things. I mean, we're kind of a living hotel. Okay, so we're at least bodies, and those have very odd boundaries, boundaries of breathing where it's sort of ambiguous, and we eat and defecate and all this kind of other stuff, right? We've actually come out of other bodies. So that again, that dividing line, right? In the same way where the mountain becomes the foothill, there's an odd sense in which we call partition, right? Where the person becomes separate from another person, and yet I think we do want to see that people are also still caught in relations with other people. So that would be the second one, right? So not only are we embodied, but a self is always social. There's never a non-social self. I mean, not only does it come from the fact that bodies are intertwined with other bodies to produce the third, right? I mean, children are offspring from a coupling. There's this. But it seems that sociality itself is an odd kind of boundary. That is, there's a kind of inward sense where I talk with myself, and that's been made possible because I've learned language. And so the language that I learn from others allows me to relate to myself. I mean, that's really kind of fascinating how thoroughly social we are. And it's not just that we're social in that sense, but we're social in other ways as well. There's kind of loud sound going on out there. But I think we're also, you know, we give a lot of sociality. I mean, a lot of our sociality comes from the fact that we are caught in social relations with others. We're structurally able to interact with certain others in certain ways, and I guess, you know, we're also able to relate to certain others in certain ways, and that's all. Again, that's all part of our sociality, right? You're always older than some people, younger than other people. You're similar to some people in various social categories, and you're different than other people in various social categories. And our sense of identity as a self seems to be caught in those various kinds of social relations. So, I mean, Fred's example of am I a male, or am I an atheist, or am I, you know, if you go to Democrat, or am I an American, or am I of this certain nationality, all of these, they become part of our notion of self, but it's self in reference to a larger social collective. The third thing is it seems like a self is inherently and thoroughgoingly a linguistic or symbolic process. That is, it's not only embodied, of an actual sort of materiality embodiment and a network of social relations, but the self also seems to be just inherently symbolic and linguistic. That is, at no point here have we even been talking about anything other than what can be said. That is, you can't talk about what can't be talked about. That's part of the rub, right? I mean, anything that we say is just that. It's something said. And we deal in the realm of the, I guess, of what can be talked about. You know, we say, well, the map is not the territory. Well, yeah, but territory, there is just one more word, right? We say that, you know, the self that can be named is not the true self. Well, the true self, that's just one more expression. Right? We're somehow caught with language and symbols as part of what we mean by self. I mean, the simplest case is that self is a word. Self has a history. I mean, we can look into the history of the words, and it also seems that to take on a name is to take on a bid for significance. I think part of the reason that we have this yearning for an object-like self is because literacy ushered in a sense of the permanent word, and that permanent word then corresponds to a kind of name. I think it's very interesting in oral societies, for example, you will have, your name will change at various stages of your life, and you actually give up your earlier names. Now, in modern legalistic society, through time, we're actually stuck with the same name. I can see I'm running out of time here. The last one is that you're temporal. A self is inherently temporal. So what is a self, right? These boundaries, they seem to be interlocking of four different kinds of fuzzy or ambiguous boundaries of embodiment, sociality, symbolicity, and temporality, that the self we use ontological metaphors to treat even those four things as if they were somehow object-like, whereas deep down we are some sort of very mysterious process that's beyond either or categorizations. Okay, thanks.